I'm Brandon Russ, coming to you live without lag or interference. Hi, everybody. It's Medium Brandon Russ, and welcome back to the Energy Report. Did I already freeze? I already froze. God damn it. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for showing up. Did you miss me yet? Did you miss me? Did you, though? Did you miss me, or was it just... Oh, my gosh. Roll call. Tracy. Bueller. Hello, Kat. How are you? Sabrina, good to see you. Debbie, wonderful to see you. Freezing is the least of the problems. Yes, and Janet, got your message. I'll respond to it. Yellow, the Truth Seeker. That's new. K-Yerk, good to see you. I saw a few of our old friends back here. Always love to do a roll call. Like you guys know, Tartan Sparty, Starlene, good to see you. Tracy, hope you worked out that little personal thing. Is my vocals freezing as well, or is it just my face? Deb, how are you? I don't know why it gives me that ticket spice thing anymore. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, MIO. Got it. Hope you guys are doing well. What's new in the news? Hey, Deb, how are you? Colleen, good to see you. Serena. Is this like twice in one day? I think so. Just my face freezes, but hey, Donna, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. And I actually should have done like a quick how do you do when I was down there in the what kind of is it? Is it the immigration state? Is that what Texas is? And so I have a funny story. First of all, if you're anywhere in that triangle in Texas, you know the triangle from Dallas over to San Antonio, shooting on over to Houston and back up to Dallas again. If you're in that area, there is a shop that is opening called Nature's Treasures. It's already been in existence, but where they're moving to is insane. It is a 24,000 square foot space. It is basically the size of a football field. And it is good, Serena. Carol, how are you? And Carolyn. Oh, grilled cheese. Num in my tum. Do they sell golden nuggets? Yep. Only funding is frozen. Jim, topical as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the news and weather and all of the things that make us freeze. It is a ginormous space. And I have been invited back to our good friends down there to do some more work. I have a couple of books coming out. Can't wait to be a part of that. And it's just they've got a beautiful space. They actually have an event center that's just kind of kitty corner from it. It's all on the same property. It's a walk there. Oh my God, I look horrible. Oh Jesus, look at me. It's we're going to get into some of the things that are frozen and some of the things that are coming down, what's nice, what's not nice. But I wanted to tell you that I had boots on the ground in one of the most diverse places in the United States. And it was so incredibly I'm about 2.5 hours from New York City. If I really hammered it, I could be in Times Square, in a little over 2 hours, right? And I've seen diversity. I grew up in upstate New York. We're not afraid of anything that would be basically that's being villainized, whether it be, a strong independent woman or an immigrant, legal or illegal. We can talk about that here in a second. And, and talking about the justification and some of the things that I missed. I'm not going to mince words because I don't do that here. The fact that we're actually debating whether or not Elon Musk may or may not have been making a Sieg Heil salute, which is the Heil Hitler salute, basically. The fact that we're even debating that is just preposterous. The fucking guy did it. And you can say that it was a Roman symbol, and you can say that it was whether it was embracing the totalitarian state of throwing up your hand like that. And by the way, great move by the right to find where other people raise their hands like that. Like, say, when Hillary Clinton was talking about the reaching new heights of bringing equality back, where women can reach new heights speech, or Michelle Obama saying, I want to reach the people in the back and the people that are forgotten, or Bernie Sanders talking about the inequalities of this wealth distribution, and one set of people have this much and the other set of people have this much. They were great at still framing it to make it look like it's a normalization. Shut up. Shut your freaking mouths. He made an historically bad decision, unless it's what he intended to do. Elon Musk is a danger. Do not think he's anything less. Do not talk about how he's the smartest man in the room. He became the richest man 2 weeks ago after the inauguration. What are you going to do with all that money? Incremental happiness does not happen. Incremental happiness happens between 40,000 and 75,000. Comfortability. You do not become incrementally happier between 60 million and 100 million. And you certainly don't become that between 60 billion and 100 billion. These are sick people. They're sick people. They work on an operating plane where it's win or lose. There is no gray. And the gray area is where the magic is. The gray area is where you develop. The gray area is when you decide that you're not going to put up with it anymore, and you're going to live in your parents' basement anymore. And you want to grow up and you want to go do things. I was in Austin, then I was in Houston. And as diverse as New York City is, it doesn't hold a candle to Houston. I met people from, obviously, Mexico. I met people from California. They're the foreigners. They're the real problems, right? And I met someone from Ecuador. I met someone from Estonia. I met someone from, I met people from all over the world in Houston. And I'm not saying I couldn't do that in New York, but that wasn't my mindset when I went to New York because I was so afraid of New York. Well, I didn't have that bias of fear, and I just walked around among people and met them. Said, hello, how are you doing? Right? And I do have kind of a running joke. So I'm in this place called the HEB. And by the way, it is the HEB. It is not the Heb. Do not call it the Heb. You will look like an outcast right from the beginning. By the way, I'm really just speaking to people in Texas right now that get the sense of humor. And, I walk in and this guy goes, hola. And I just come out with, hola, ¿cómo está? And then he went off on some sort of Spanish dialect that I could not catch up to. And it was a really cool grocery store, don't get me wrong. But this guy thought he had found his brethren. His white counterpart, his North American blue-eyed counterpart. That's not saying it's beautiful language. Beautiful language. And then I just politely looked at him and said, I haven't taken the second class yet. I only know como esta. Like that's it. That's all I got. And he just burst into laughter. And, I didn't understand his language, but he took the time to understand mine. Hope you get where I'm going with this already. He had no problem laughing about it. And at first I'm like, I get the wrong gringo, I'm toast. I think he did say the word gringo. I'm not sure. Anyways, I understand that's an insult. But he took the time to figure out how to live in this country. And I don't know where he was from. I mean, I could guess. I was 114 miles from the border ish. I think he was from Mexico, I think. But I didn't take the time. But he took the time to laugh with me. That dude fucking stays. That dude stays. I don't think that there's anything wrong with him. And he might not have done the proper paperwork. Hell, he might have even done something wrong on the other side. But on the other side of this, and by the way, the HEB is a really cool shop. They have their own charcuterie section for real. They have these almonds with rosemary on it. It's so good. Anyways, I'm doing better. After a night full of tacos, you want something different. So the blessing for me in that moment was how human I was. I was excited to be there. I'm like, a grocery store? And to have someone laugh with me in another language was a true funny you should say that. I also had an amazing thing happen at the show in the Woodlands. It was a place I'd been before, and I cannot say the details right now, but I'm going to tell you the groundswell and the ground movement of people being scared, of people being worried, of people having to hide their pride library, and people needing to not upset commissioners and county executives and whatever. They're trying to be respectful because they would expect the respect to come to them as well. But just the fact that we live in a world because an election happened that makes you second guess whether or not you can show yourself and your pride is a thing. It's a thing. And and the fact that and this crystal shop is amazing. You're like, but Brandon, they're 24,000 square feet. They also have a rock quarry connected to it, which makes it okay because you're doing geology things. Oh, sure, fine. Let the missus get herself a big amethyst or whatever. Right? And what happens to me, for me, when I go to these places and being in Memphis and, honestly, it's a little too free in places like Florida, where people can just do this work and not have any credentials and whatever. I mean, there's a happy medium in this. But now we're so far away from like advancing into real dialogue about what our voices should sound like or how we can become the best version of ourselves. Now we have to worry about being in fear. We have to worry about like our associations with people. We have to worry, I saw this thing the other day and it really laid off a little bit. This break was to let my brain wrap around where I want to go with this. And I started to realize how much, you want to be smart, you want to be able to survive, you want to be able to, some of it's the game part that the, business alpha side of me wants to win and navigate through it and be smart about it. And then there's the other part where to position yourself in anything but the right side or the right way to go about things is the only way. And I'm watching people flail right now. And I get it. And I see you. And a lot of people talk about, the inauguration is a very dark day. A lot of people talk about the connection with these, quite frankly, mostly illicit acts, by a president of an overreaching governmental hand that was basically told you're immune to anything wrong. And by the way, it wasn't just the Supreme Court. It was the lower courts. It was the Jack Smith retiring. It was the Liz Cheney running away. It was the institution of fear into your daily life. And if there is one thing that can take away from your intuition, it is fear. Because to make intuition work, you need to have the unabashed level of love to who you are and what you're about. You need to be able to reach there. You need to be able to make a mistake. You need to be able to feel your way. And if somebody's poking you, or you're worried about somebody poking you, or you're worried about somebody coming in and taking you away, that evolution of fear is the only thing they're evolving right now. They're finding new ways to see who's going to come kiss the ring. They're finding new ways to see who's going to alter what you're doing. Well, at some point, they're always going to have you. They had you at your birth. They've got your DNA. They have you at your taxes. You either file or you don't. But there's a dialogue here that's real. And this is what's going on that nobody's talking about. Have you noticed how quiet the people that are ready to make changes are being? They're watching him move his chess pieces. They're watching him move it into trap modes. He cannot eradicate the 14th Amendment, but he's going to challenge the 14th Amendment because he wants to waste everybody's time. He doesn't respect it. And ultimately, what he doesn't respect is our time, effort, and time-honored tradition of being a country. You see, this isn't a country anymore. It's a company. And you know the feeling that you had when you worked for that one company where you just hated and dreaded Mondays coming? Every single Monday was hell on earth because the Sunday night before, you just flopped. Yeah, sure, during football season, you had a couple of distractions in the afternoon, but come 6 o'clock, cleaning up for dinner, the reality of the next day was coming and you didn't like it. That is the way all of this country is right now. Oh, and by the way, if you love what you do, you're just ramping up on new ways to be mean to people. We're watching our neighbors that, oh, by the way, had a GoFundMe page 3 years ago because their autistic child wasn't being accepted in the sports program, but you believed in them enough to throw 25 shekels down. And now they're sitting there saying, send them all back, sons of bitches. Yeah, you better respect. Donald Trump and his administration, and it's his administration, don't think this is him. He ain't that smart. Is literally eliminating solicitor general positions left and right. What do solicitor generals do? Solicitor generals have the separate but equal stay of investigation of fraud, mismanagement, misuse, and abuse. Fraud, mismanagement, misuse, and abuse. That's what they oversee. of anything that would receive government funding or be in a program of whether it be the entitlement program or whatever. Meanwhile, he's freezing financial aid to things. Now, if you read the fine print, he's not actually attacking a lot of the things that go to things like shelters, SNAP, other programs that are directly related to things. No, they're typically bigger things like foreign aid packages to third world countries that needed condoms. Like, there is a little bit of common sense in that, but not enough to go about how they do it. Now, is the news reporting this as in like, oh, foreign aid is cut? Sure is. Because they still have advertisers. They still have advertisers. They still have people that are not going to let them not sensationalize something that he's doing to get a click or a rating. And they're just going to go down with the ship of people pushing, right? One of the biggest buildings, I looked this up earlier today. There were 5 tall skyscrapers in Houston. One of them was the Exxon building. No surprises there. Another one was, there were 2 other like financial, like I think one of them now was like UBS or something. And then one of the buildings that were off to the side, just outside of the loop, you know, these larger cities have loops, was the Planned Parenthood building. And it caught my eye because it stood with the name on top. Snap is frozen. Thank you for that clarity. So we're not even getting the true take on this, but I saw this giant Planned Parenthood building, and it is one of their yeah. Yeah, the Planned Parenthood has kind of been under scrutiny already, but I'm interested to see, has anyone received notification for any of the things that are there? Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I see you. Elaine, good to see you. Yeah, and it's funny when we talk about things like Elon, he's oddly going to talk about things from a universal, standout, right? And it's how do I want to say this? Elon Musk loves humanity but hates the human. He doesn't want to see her suffering. He just wants to have his name on the side of the building once he's influenced it. Donald Trump wants to rename the country after him. And I'm not prepared to do it right this second, although I'll do a quick look and see if it'll work. But Nostradamus named Trump in his quatrains. And the trumpet sounded and the great city shook. And then you see the bully behavior of taking out the most marginalized of people. And listen, there's a part of this that in the world we should be saying, couldn't you guys just figure this shit out yourselves? Right? Can't you do this on your own? But do we set up an entire in after the Great Depression, which, by the way, this should scare the shit out of everyone. And I'm not here to scare the shit out of you. But the markets right now look very similar to right before the great crash, the big crash, right? The black the Black Monday, the Black Tuesday, when the market lost 78% of its value. The market conditions are very similar, but it's almost, you can't compare it. It's apples and oranges. There are so many more sectors, and there's so many more moving and working parts, right? And one of the working parts is how the Federal Reserve, which is not a government entity, it is an independent entity, which, remember that for a second. We have these inflationary bubbles that are created with fake currencies, where once upon a time, one of the things that would keep the British pound afloat was how the ruble was. And then when the Bolshevik Revolution happened, then the pound suffered because it had to overcorrect what was going on in Russia. And then you had, the Deutschmark, which then became another solidification. And when that dropped, then it became a pressure. When the dollar came into effect, it was, if we have $1, we will have one value of gold on hand. Well, we were taken off the gold standard. Thank you very much, Richard Nixon. But at the time, it made a lot of sense because we could only cap. It took away the value of gold and let it be its own commodity instead of a latchkey commodity. In other words, it would only grow as much as gold we had. So we were limiting ourselves. You could say, well, an ounce of gold is now worth $50 as opposed to $1. But then you're still changing the mark whenever you can by taking it off the gold standard and moving it towards fiat money, which is literal translation to faith money. That means that the dollar that you have no longer has a quantifiable value except for the value in which you put on it. So if I say this costs $1, then I have to agree that the dollar is enough and it is a fair and even exchange. What is happening with Bitcoin and other digital currencies is that it is creating its own value that only has value onto itself. The dollar could go back to the gold standard to say, in Fort Knox, we have 20 bars of gold, and this $500 billion is now worth $5 billion an ounce, or whatever it is that it would work out. We could still go back to that, which was the idea of fiat money, that we have faith, but knowing full well if we ever needed to revert, we could go back to it. Digital currency was made out of thin air. And let me tell you about the energy of things that are made out of thin air. It's how cults happen. You buy it because you feel like if you don't buy it, then you're going to miss out on it. The Super Bowl's in a couple of weeks, and I want you to watch all the advertising. There are exactly 2 categories in there. Are you ready? 2. The only 2 categories of commercials that you're going to see on the Super Bowl is 1, GMO-driven foodstuffs, Doritos, Pepsis, Budweiser, whatever, right? Remember when the commercials were a big thing? Budweiser. Remember that? Remember when Spuds McKenzie was a thing? I'm dating myself here. But these GM-laden products worship the Super Bowl. Right? It was also when Apple announced that they were coming out with a new generation of laptops and railed against the thought process of 1984. Right? And the Super Bowl has become a spectacle. And trust me, they've got the 2 teams they wanted. They got an East Coast rivalry team in the Eagles. And by the way, my regards to the Giants. You don't let the best running back in the league walk, ever. And then on the other side of it, you've got Taylor Swift. End of conversation. End of conversation. Patrick Mahomes is fantastic, but that's not the reason why they were pulling for him. It is because who Kelsey is dating. Right? Now, I'm not willing to say it's rigged, but they've got what they've got. Because the second thing, and by the way, the foodstuffs will pay the bills, keep the lights on. The second category, and by the way, the second category is finance companies. And you're like, Brandon, that seems pretty general. That seems pretty like what? And you're like, well, what about my Verizon? What about the Verizon commercial? Isn't it a services, goods and services? You ever look at your bill? Free phone with this financing. My free phone costs $42 a month. I'm like, you said it was free. Well, after you pay the service charges off. I'm sorry, what? Well, how do I get out of this? Yeah, he already signed. What? Oh, and by the way, sportsbook gambling, finance companies. The actual finance companies. Oh, but Brandon, what about my Progressive commercials? What about my Geico's? Finance companies. Oh, and if you don't think so, ask somebody in Southern California who had their policy cut 2 weeks before their fire. Because they were hedging their bets against, the storm season. Oh, and car companies, finance companies. They just happen to sell cars. Right? I worked in the car business for a software company that serviced dealerships. And when I sat with one of the dealers to really understand like how their product was used and that sort of thing, and one of the things that he said is he goes, we don't make jack shit on a car anymore. We have to sell 20 of those cars to get the rebate back so that then we can make enough money to say that we make money on cars. It keeps the lights on. A couple of $1,000s every car. And the cycle can be anywhere from, a couple hours to, 22 days. It's just the way the cycle is. Where they make their money is on their warranties, on their service contracts, on their actual service department itself. It had nothing. They were selling parts and warranties. They just happened to be selling you a car. And when you look at those rates, because it's a service-based thing, they can charge you whatever level they want. And those of you that have been in small business that have ever needed what is loan, I mean, you could say it's a payday loan. It's the equivalent of a payday loan, but a loan that you would get through a non-traditional funding source. In other words, you're not going through a bank. They're approving you based on what your cash flow is. You're not needing to show, they don't even pull a freaking credit report because you sign your life away on it. They're basically like, yeah, so if you don't pay us back, we just take your assets. They're like, we can put a lien on your house, on your car, on your whatever. And it's loan sharking. It is literal loan sharking. Because the rate, when you figure it out, is close to 40%. Ish, give or take. And they tack it right on there. Instead of saying that it is a premium rate, right? To say you're going to pay a 21%, 21.99, 24.99. And by the way, once upon a time, the most that you could charge was $19.99, 19.99%. Then they edged that up. Then they edged it up a little more. Then they moved it up a little more. Remember a few years ago when people were like $7 to get $20 out of the bank? Remember when ATMs were starting to go through the roof? And then we needed a mechanism in order to withhold that from people gouging? Because you wouldn't even find out. They wouldn't even notify you. They would say, do you agree to the service charge? You'd be like, okay, what is it going to be, $2? and you see $7 and $8 off of that. And by the way, when you make an investment like a car, by the way, those prices are through the roof. And then when you eventually see what you're approved for and what they're able to do for you, what is it going to be to get you into this car today? I used to say that all the time. What would it take for me to get you into this Citroen today? It's $3. Could you put down $1? Could you pay 10 cents a month for 200 months? I'm very happy with my Jeep, by the way. Could you guys have guessed that I drive a Jeep? Right? And it's funny because your consumerism brain pushes you to say, well, this is what the price of admission is. I'm going to have a $398 payment for the next 60 months. And you put that energy into it. And then when you break it down, the best thing you can do for yourself is put a little towards on top every month. And when I say a little bit, I mean $12 or $11 if you're into it. $22. I pay $22 extra a month for a mortgage. My mortgage will be paid off 3 full years early with that method. That should tell you all you need to know how much interest rates destroy you. And these businesses are making money for what? And I'm all for somebody to make $1. I'm not saying I'm not in need. But damn it, Potter, how much money do you need? Do you remember in It's a Wonderful Life when he just kept asking, but what do you need? And the one guy said, I need it all. And I need $224. Right? And then the next woman said, well, I guess I just need $17. Oh, did you hear that? Just $17. Oh, bless your heart, Addie. We're in this deconstructive criticism zone to just say, what do you need? Oh, and by the way, all the financial packages. When the education department is dissolved, this is the part that is just sheer reality. I can't not share this reality. When the Department of Education is eliminated, so does your backing for your student loans, which means they get to evaluate what kind of debt it is. And they can do what is known as margin call. Your backer is going to default by not existing anymore. By the way, the same thing happens when your great grandmother co-signs your loan and they pass away. If you haven't been making good payments and you don't have collateral in a backer anymore, they can say, give us the car back or pay us in full because the terms of the agreement are no longer there. When he eliminates the Department of Education, every single student loan will come to term. Not worried yet? Oh, and by the way, I want you to remember that when that Trump flagging neighbor of yours starts crying, because they're about to. It is only a matter of time for his brand of disgusting hatred to reach everyone. He will find your weakness. And there will be people that will literally look you in the eye and say, well, I'm not as bad off as you are. So here in America, we're a little worried about Sunday night because Monday morning's coming fast and we're working for somebody that we're not finding any satisfaction with being a part of. Well, that's un-American. Don't you see how they got you? Don't you see how they think that by manipulating this, you are somehow going to not be a patriot? Pay your bills or be a slug. Be a citizen or go. And by the way, there will be just enough. Don't wholesale think that this is like, these ICE arrests, they are getting some bad guys. Oh, are they getting some bad guys? Yay, got a bad guy. But guess what? We had mechanisms in place to do that already. We didn't need you to come in with the Gestapo, Christy Nome. What, are you afraid they're going to have a dog that needs to go down? She's a piece of shit, too. I should start a list. In this kind of like renegade maverick bullshit action of like, we're strong and we need to assert our whatever. Come at me, bro. Good luck with that. Because I'd rather have Monday morning and tell you that I hate what I do for a living than bow down to the idea that I'm tied into you in a way that my 40-something years of a working life was so that then you could come along and take away my Social Security. And you can come along and tell me that my value and the building blocks that I had to put around it, from a mortgage, from a student loan to a mortgage, to the orthodontist that needed to be paid for and financed, to whatever it is that's going to be laid out there. And his way of action is to eliminate everything that caused you normalcy. Forget about comfort. Forget about comfort. The things that gave you normalcy. Right? That's why he's trying to withdraw and circumvent the 14th Amendment. I mean, for crying out loud, there was a senator, was it Friday? He introduced a law that would allow Donald Trump to run for a third and even fourth presidency. We've lost our minds to worship a morally bankrupt human. And by the way, you can tell, morally bankrupt people do good things all the time. I'm going to say that again. Morally bankrupt people do things, sometimes by accident, all the time. Well, we're celebrating when he actually stops at a red light. Like, oh my gosh, well, he's a good citizen. He stopped at a red light. What do you want, a cookie? Like, get your head out of your asses. Well, he's a real leader, and oh my God, the derangement syndrome that you have thinking that Donald Trump isn't a great leader. I saw a sign that said the light will always win outside of a church that had a Trump sign next to it. And I thought, how much manipulation do you need to not see, oh, that's right, you're still waiting for a savior? I know this isn't a popular opinion, but I'm going to go here. Senator Ogles, yeah. And this isn't going to go over well. And some of you are cringing. I'll save it. But I think that there is the reason why we woke up the day after the election and we were scared was because all the things that I grew up knowing were right and wrong, and knowing or having some sort of false safety of thinking that nobody was going to come after me, I didn't do anything wrong, They're moving the goalpost daily. They're moving the goalpost because they just want to move the goalposts. They move it so that then they say, oh, yeah, well, this obscure thing in 1837, the abortion ban came through our highly evolved 50 years of precedence and 200 and nearly 50 years of law-abiding procedure was overruled by an obscure, non-applicable Magna Carta era law and ruling in England to overturn the freedom for you to obtain discreet medical care, and therefore translated into the shaming of anyone that did it, the shaming of anyone that participated and administered it, and the shaming of anything that you could do that doesn't produce a baby for them. I fucking said it. Because you're going to be so pinched, you're not going to be able to afford it. What, are you going to have a life of poverty for your kid? Did you pay your student loan yet? Did you pay your ridiculous high heating bill? Anyone else get a heating bill that just absolutely crippled you? So when the revolution comes, and I'm not calling for one, but when it comes, by the way, I'm a peaceful protester because that's what I'm calling. By the way, here's the sound bit that I want to have out there. I think everyone should peacefully protest because they're going to need to be able to work with anyone who's in charge. Did you get that soundbite? Okay. Because when the revolution comes for them, they're not going to know what to do because you're going to throw money at us and we're going to go, we don't know what that is. They're going to say, hey, we're going to give you freedoms, and we're going to say, we don't know what that is. Everything that we are valuing is being devalued to a point where when you try and give it back to us, we're going to go, we don't want that anymore. We just want your head on a proverbial platter. You see what I did there? Allegedly. They want to go after people that scream rhetoric. They're going to want to go after people that actually have a very conscious decision-making process. The unpopular thing I was going to say is that I follow this priest who actually talks about social commentary, and he's a very bright man. And what he realized, and listen, Catholicism has its own challenges. The Pope is in trouble, everybody. This shift that's going on worldwide is a problem for Catholicism, right? And one of the things that he said is basically that when you have faith in something, you allow for the mistakes, you allow for the progress, you allow for it to roll out. But when you deal in an absolutism, you know, things that say of testimony and self-fulfilling prophecies and being able to say things like, if I believe it is true, then it is true, and nobody else can take that away from me. It is the purpose of self-truth. And when we get into the idea of self-truth, what could be true for me does not have to be true for you. It does not eliminate or take away my truth, and I cannot influence or otherwise dictate your truth. But they think that they are playing in a field that takes away or eliminates or creates a standard of truth. When Donald Trump said there are just two genders, nobody fucking disagreed with him. It's not the point, Donnie. The point of transgender identification has much more to do with the idea that if they don't push for equality, you're going to discriminate against them. That's it. It was not that they needed their own bathrooms. That was an extremism. And quite frankly, the extremism is why we got here. We should have multiple bathrooms. We should have gender identifying things. We should let them play sports. No. I'm going to be the same person in the room. And by the way, I love my transgender people. I do. I understand your struggles. But if you were born with outdoor plumbing, you go to the outdoor plumbing door. If you are born with indoor plumbing, you go to the indoor plumbing door. When you get outdoor plumbing, you can go to the outdoor plumbing door. When you get indoor plumbing, you can go to the indoor plumbing door. That would have saved everybody. The part of identify or whatever, our pure identification of self and realization of self rails against a system for us to not figure it out. Because in this country, we're really, really good at the beginning. All for one for all, nation, representation, no taxation. We're all about that. You know what else we're really good at? Blowing shit up. You know what we're not good at? We are not good at the process in between. And we have such a low threshold and such a low mental IQ and an emotional IQ in a big boy syndrome of like, I'm getting close to a feeling. I need a truck. I'm sorry, I was just in Texas. But understand that we don't get the process. We think that the process needs to be dictated, not the process of you are having trouble identifying your sexual nature. You are having questions about what you're attracted to. You are having questions about what your plumbing is, about your physical makeup. And instead of being able to work through it, you also have to deal with the shit shame of a society that says, what do you need your own bathroom to? We made the mistake of letting these points that needed common defense become the extreme that represented transgender people represents the 0.00027% of the population. But it became a rallying cry for a bunch of chest bumping, Bible beating misogynists that say, it's funny how they can say, your body, my choice, except for when it comes to the decision of how you identify. This is my body, your choice. You get to decide what my plumbing is and what I identify as. Just wash your hands. I love that. And by the way, immigration, we didn't have to go after every damn immigrant. What we needed to do was actually create focus to go after the bad guys in immigration. And oh, by the way, why not find the supports for the people that those people are going to leave behind that the drug money actually kept them here for? Listen, it's not lost on me that families are being financed by drug lords. It's a thing. It is a thing in that community. And you are seeing people being raided, and you are seeing people rounded up. And by the way, the people that haven't done anything wrong will eventually go free based on an old system that we have called the United States. But did they move the mark? Did they say, well, you did something wrong? Come on. Everybody's done something wrong if you look long enough. You know, if they follow you to work, you ran a red light, you cut somebody off. You know, you put something in your basket that you didn't actually ring up. Okay, that one's pretty calculated, but whatever. That's just you want to make me ring up? I'm going to get paid for it. I didn't say that out loud, did I? Did you guys? Wait, let me just rewind that a little bit. Hey, Patty. And listen, there are things to address in this. Don't get me wrong. You know, this is the part where I almost sound like I'm a Trumper, but he's got a point. But again, he's going after peace-loving people that are not eating cats and dogs, and you're just making shit up. By the way, that's the exact reason why we got to where we got, because we had people that were just making shit up. Making it up. So what's real? The news? I don't think so. I think I'm here again. And by the way, it's an overrun system. If there's an attempt to clean that up, that's fine, but it's not being done in a humane way. It's being done in a vindictive way. It's being done in a way that makes you go, yeah, well, at least we cleaned it up. You know? It is absurd to me. It's absurd to me that he let everybody go from the January 6th riots. I don't want to recap what they did. It was wrong. They went through a process. They were convicted by a jury of their peers. There was evidence shown. There were representation made. And they're set free because they were loyalist. Fucking period. There is nothing that it is ironic that a law-abiding president releases people that were correctly convicted, rightfully convicted, released while rounding up illegals. And listen, guys, let's have an honest conversation about this. There's some bad dudes they're getting right now. I work with the police. I work with agency level people. There's some bad dudes out there, and they're not good, and they should be rounded up. I'm not going to lie. They're the ones that take kids, guys. It's a thing. It is a thing. But I have a hard time thinking that the greater good is being serviced while Trump and Melania's coin, fake fucking coin and crypto nonsense takes off, while Elon Musk becomes the richest man in the world again. It's all a hedge play, guys. Don't you get it? And they want you to sit there in fear on Sunday night all the time. So then instead of coming in and hating your job, you get a boss that's happy because he's grifting behind the scenes. We don't have to take your student aid from you. Oh, we'll give you your... And by the way, food stamps account for 0.004%. 0.00004% of the entire federal budget. It's nothing. Nothing. They're offering packages to employees. You know why? Federal employees that are either on a contract or in full-time, civilians working for the federal government. They are giving them packages because they know if they illegally dismiss them, they have a giant lawsuit on their hands. So if you come to them and you sign that NDA, any of this ringing a bell? So Stormy, you've been working here for a few years. Could you sign this NDA and not talk about anything that you saw during the transition or doing any of this stuff? And therefore, you no longer have a leg to stand on to talk to the public. Oh, you just signed an NDA. Your personal finances are now tied to it. You can't talk about what I did wrong. How do you like that, Snowden? You're catch-22. You're being bought. They're literally in the process of buying everyone, whether it be by fear or by finance. This isn't a benevolent society anymore. It's not benevolent in the least. It is serving the very few people. And what are you going to do with all that money anyways? Huh? Get servitude from people? Think you want a game? Go play Monopoly. These are people that are wired in a way that were willing to sell their soul. Long gone. Long gone. We're dealing with people that don't have the fear of a creator. And by the way, once you think you've already sold your soul, you got nothing else to lose. All you got is meat suit, baby. Right? And then you come back and you say, and they treat you like crap. Have you ever had the boss that treats you like crap? I've actually had really good management teams. I am put up with them. You know why? People that were mean. I interviewed at a company once. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when I was back in my heyday, I was a catch. And he sat me down and he goes, listen, he goes, just to let you know, we run things a little differently here. And by the way, if you're going to be in human resources, that is not what you want to hear. And he laid it out there and he basically explained that, like, there's the people that make money here and then there's the people that make money for us here. And he talked about how he looks the other way for one set of people and he holds the other. He holds the others accountable, and those are the people I'm going to need to manage. And don't really worry about top performers and top developers and all this other stuff. And what he was basically saying to me is that there's a two-tier system of justice here. Not two separate and equal parts. It wasn't law and order. It was lawless and disorder. And he said, I'm going to need you to keep certain things private and quiet, and I'm going to need you to keep other things, whatever. Do you think you could do that here? Then he looked at my page and he says, I'll tell you what, I can't believe, really, that's all you wanted? I'm going to actually tell you that I'm going to add another number on top of that. He writes down a number on a piece of paper, and it was a significant amount more. Like, it was a difference between paying $22 a month and $220 a month extra to a mortgage. And he smiled and he says, I think that is the going price for confidentiality. And I was like, you son of a gun. I said, I think that you are headed towards a moment where you're going to run out of runway. And he says, well, our product is evolving and we're staying ahead of it and we got good people. And I said, that's not what I said. You're going to run out of runway, because one of the rules and one of the roles that a human resources director has is to keep you out of hot water, to see to mitigate things before they become legal, to be able to stay ahead of it, of like, well, you knew what you were getting into. Well, you knew this was an obligation. You knew these were the rules. That's what a human resources department does. And this son of a bitch wanted me to make 2 handbooks, basically. And they said, you're going to run out of runway, which means you're going to run out of time. You're going to run out of money. And you're going to run out of alliances, because it's only a matter of time before that happens. That's what I mean by you're going to run out of runway. The current presidential administration is going to run out of runway. It will. Because of the doublespeak and because of the unabashed drive to create chaos. My hope, if you had told me this was going to go on 10 years ago, I'd said, well, I hope they hold him accountable. But we can't do that. He was testing the slow levers of justice to see if you would ever follow through with jack shit. We didn't. We let them off the hook. Our checks and balances are gone. Our legislature has become a bunch of sycophants or a bunch of enemies of the state. There's no third rail. Our Justice Department bought and sold. Our president is able to run rickshaw over everybody. What you have to do is call his bluff. Call his bluff. Brandon, how can I do that? I'll tell you another story. There was a company that I worked for that was a rehabilitation company. And they were a business and they were an LLC and they were run by a priest. And I can't say his name. I have not signed anything, but I don't want to shame that. But I will tell you, he was in a very prominent position in the state government in New York. He had a very important role. So he had access to everyone. Well, he ruled by chaos because he wanted everybody to need him. It's the first time I'd ever actually worked for a narcissist. And I came in and I was working in the human resources department. And part of the thing of me coming in as a human resources department, I hadn't stayed up on it for a while, but I knew he got into a little bit of trouble. But basically, in a nutshell, they didn't have controls in place for an HR department. They didn't have locked files. They didn't have minimum security things. And there were questions about files within the whatever. So with that in mind, they finally, as a plea bargain to keep the investigators away and whatever, they had to get an HR person. And this person who was running the show, this priest, came to me one day and he says, "What do you know about equal employment?" I said, I've gone around the block. And I was really there thinking I was helping a nonprofit work towards rehabilitating people that were addicts. They had housing units, they had work programs, they had food programs, they had all sorts of things to help people get back up on their feet. And as I began to recognize their internal lack of controls wasn't just about files being stolen and having HR, related functions be swept under the rug. The tone was set when he said to me, "What do you know about equality?" And he said, "Well, we had somebody from the NAACP here the other day. And you know what? It was shocking what he accused me of." And he basically spoke very much not like someone that would work for the NAACP. Not someone that was looking to work with a priest in a rehab center. Instead, what came out of him was the most horrific racial diatribes and tropes I'd ever heard from a grown white man, and certainly someone of the cloth. It was disgusting. And my intuition and the vibration that I felt from that moment told me, the game is up, old man. You've met your match. I, of course, asked him who he dealt with the NAACP. And he, of course, couldn't remember the fellow's name. Nice guy. Oh, which office did they work in? Oh, the one over there. And I pulled out my phone and I said, I have most of them on speed dial. I worked on an integration unit for making sure that low income and residents could get jobs. And I used to volunteer for work readiness programs. They all love me over there. Let's have a conversation and address some of the language you just used, because that's not okay. I'm here to help you. I don't want them coming in here and accusing you of he literally used the words, well, they say I'm running a slave shop. What? That is not how they speak at the NAACP, unless they are talking about something true to the bone. And they certainly wouldn't have had a level of disrespect for a man of the cloth of 50 plus years and say that to them. They're a good organization. And when they're standing up for any of their interests, it's because they see an inequality. It's not because they like to go around and say, are you diverse enough? Are you DEI enough? The ironic thing to this is that when I uncovered his pay for play programs, his no-show jobs to the Senate and other people associated with the Senate, when I uncovered the loop that he would create in sick people, that after they got through recovery, they would get a job through one of his job programs. And then whenever somebody was going to get close to being released, guess what? One of the supervisors would leave them unsupervised with a nickel bag somewhere. They would test and go right back into the program again. He did it over and over and over again. And the people that told me this story said, please help us. We keep getting trapped. When you have someone that has struggled with addiction over and over again, and you see them caught in the loop, and the only thing they want to do is change, and they're begging the HR department to do it because they can't talk to their counselors, and they can't talk to their groups, and they can't talk to their priest. Fuck you. I boast about working with agencies, but one of my favorites to work with is the FBI, because they didn't hold any back. They held nothing back. They raided their organization. They took the CFO into custody. They took the CEO into custody. The only person they didn't arrest was the son of a bitch who ran the scheme. By the way, he loved his Eldorado Cadillac. Man of the cloth, my left nut. And by the way, I don't disparage people for a nice car. But of the people, for the people, by the skim. By the way, I was villainized for uncovering such a nondescript way of the answer. I literally remember hearing what one of the investigators said when I was telling what the scheme was. He said, they're addicts. It's what they do. And I said, but as an organization, they have a distinct responsibility to protect the people that are there. And that is their sin. You shouldn't be funding that. You shouldn't be supporting that. And you sure as shit shouldn't be going, well, it's done by a priest. He saved a lot of people. And guess what? The damaging part of this is that he did actually help a lot of people. But his entire process, and he was stealing food stamps, he was double charging, he was making more money off of things, but he wouldn't hire qualified people. He wouldn't hire people that were, I mean, his CFO had like half a year's worth in accounts payable, and puts him as a CFO and let him take classes so he can rehabilitate. I was seriously the only person that was above the individual contributors. And even then, there were only 2 people in the entire organization that had not been through his program. So they were all hush hush about what would work and what you talked about and what you didn't talk about. Sound like anybody's presidency? Sound like anybody making sure you have nothing but loyalists around you? It sound like anybody that would surround themselves with such incompetency that you didn't even know that what they were doing was wrong? Oh, and by the way, there's a few people that got absolute shit shamed. Shit shamed. Workplace stuff happens, right? Romances happen. Well, be a shame if the world found out about it. He would find out about it and then manipulate the person till the end of time. I'll be a sure shame if so-and-so found out about this. Hey, it'd be a shame. You know what that son of a bitch said to me? Oh, your foster parent. Huh. Be a shame if the county got a call about you. I wanted to quit. I wanted to run. I was literally saying to him, like the Lord would do, I'm taking care of others. Be a shame if the county found out some sort of thing and you get investigated. Fuck you, old man. I know which way the elevator went when you died. Did you bring the marshmallows? He stayed in power for a long time and was funded by the New York State government for decades. Oh, and by the way, I think I'm just going to start talking about it. And if somebody calls me and tells me to stop, then I will. But it led to the fall of most. It led to the fall of most of the administrations. Everybody from Sheldon Silver to Spitzer, it just had a slippery slope because they started to, it was actually a gateway for them to start to follow the money. And although they might have had one small piece of this to say, well, I can support this, I can donate this, I can make sure that Father Fuckamus was able to get what he needed to. Muckafuss, I should probably say that backwards. But they were all had their hands tied to it. And when that case exploded, they were able to look into other people's stuff where you find things like pay for play or trans state across lines prostitution. It literally opened the floodgates of investigations on every single level. And I thought that was dirty pool, but it was also the pool playing that they were playing. I defended the addicts that day. I defended the taxpayers, I guess. But most importantly, I think I defended faith. Know that people can rise to power based on being the most faithful. Know that people can rise to a level of fame or succession. I mean, you look at the Hawk Tui girl, and listen, I thought it was funny. Thought it was cutesy. You know where she is right now? Well, they'd like to find her because she has literally bilked over $40 million from investors for a Bitcoin that doesn't exist. We live in a world where take the money and run. Steve Miller, worst band ever. Some of you know the story. Is a way of life. Grab and go. Dink and ditch. Not my problem. But on that day, he had threatened my family. He threatened my way of life. And what was more important is when you see somebody sitting across from you saying, help me get out of this. They'd made mistakes. You could easily judge them. I could have said, well, that's just what addicts do. because that is the attitude they had. You're a piece of shit. Stay there. I have a system set up for us to get the money that we need, the influence that we have. We need your head count. We need your addiction. We need you to fall down when we tell you. During your walk up to Golgotha, you must fall 3 times. It is in the script, goddammit. We will show you mercy by wiping your face and giving you sour wine. We will judge you. We will take your clothes. We will strip you down at the end and crucify you. But look, we will give you fame. Who are you to grift on God? Who are you to grift on the system? And who are you to grift on those that can't do it themselves? People in need. They are not worthless. It is our job to help them. There is a difference between comfort and making it comfortable. I'll hear that argument. Because in that part where you have comfort, you still know it's temporary. Comfort gets you out of the rain, but it doesn't build you the house. Comfortable is handing you a house. What is the part in between? Where does it make sense? I did a thing for the project for Habitat for Humanity. And I knew someone who was the CFO of one of the local branches. And I said, do you guys need a fundraiser? She goes, always. They were building a house for 4 people. That's what their funding allowed. That's what they had. And I was dealing with some of the really good people. I mean, they were just good people. The volunteers were retired builders or architects or whatever. The people that were furnishing it were interior decorating students. They were getting things donated and then having it make sense. And they had some budget for some new things here and there and appliances and whatever. And I met someone who was a single mom. And she kept saying over and over again about how grateful she was for this because she always dreamed of this. And I think the thing we always have to be cautious of is the difference between comfort and comfortable. Is really in this experience that I had. She was finishing community college. She had 2 children. Single mom going to school. Clearly there's some subsidies involved. She's getting a home. And she, I kept asking her what she wanted to be when she grows up. She goes, well, right now I'm a mom going to school. And I go, okay, if that's as far as you can see, then so be it. But I knew that those children were a choice. And she made those choices. Not once, twice. And she made a decision somewhere along the way to say, I need to change this because I need to be connected. I need to do this the right way. And the challenge that I had in this was that she wasn't ready to own a house. I mean, I'm all for helping, but I could tell this was too much for her. It was just too much. She had to pay a stipend rent. There's a whole system. And if you look it up on the website, it's actually out there and talks about like what you have to pay back and all of this other stuff. But basically you're getting a house for a very reduced rate, but it's certainly not free. It is not free. Everybody thinks, oh, it's free housing. Oh, it's free whatever. It's affordable housing is what it is. And by the way, it's not free healthcare. It's affordable healthcare. Quit villainizing the shit out of making things affordable in a capitalist society. How's your eggs, everybody? But the problem and the challenge of this woman was that it was too much too fast. And she didn't earn her way. And how she didn't earn her way is that she had two baby daddies that saw this as an opportunity to have a new home base. She hadn't developed that muscle to draw boundaries, to have inner connections with people, of seeing the place of improvement wasn't her getting a house or getting an education. It was her being able to draw boundaries, because she didn't see her mother draw boundaries for the baby daddy that was hers. And she was the product of an abusive situation. And that she didn't see her mom draw boundaries. So then as she grew up, she didn't draw boundaries. And baby daddy number one, you could go, oh, well, we were young, we were kids. Well, she was externalizing her affection. And then she said, oh my gosh, things are so tough and I can't break cycles, because she didn't even know she was in a cycle. She had that baby, 16 years old. Choice. Then further along, she gets away from that baby daddy. She finds another one. And again, I'm not saying it as a negative. I'm just telling you what it is. When I say baby daddy, I'm not talking about marrying material. I'm talking about a grifter, a user. She didn't know how to draw boundaries and say, my life is in a different place. You are not part of it. You did not contribute to my success. You cannot be part of my success moving forward. You don't get to show up during the good parts of the show only. You have to see me through the struggles. She didn't have that in there because she was so goddamn desperate, because everything was a desperate moment for her. And she had this bright light around her. And when her house became the central focus of a drug war and people passed away, I'm skipping a lot here, guys. There's a difference between the boundaries that keep people out and the boundaries that keep people in. And everybody needed a Teflon jacket that day. It didn't go well. And then all of a sudden, it was villainized that, you know what, public housing ain't the answer. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the education. It was the maturity. It was her interaction with other people that needed to grow and become. Sometimes when you give things to people on one side of it, it makes us look great. It makes us look amazing to be like, look at all the help we're doing. But is it right? Did they go through the candy land of challenges to get yourself to there, to know what you have? Fortunately for her and her children, the answer was no. In the way that the current administration would take that as in, like, let's see, what a waste of money. We constantly fix things the wrong way. We get obsessed with the problem and not the solution. Let me give you a home. Let me give you a car. Let me give you whatever, so that then I don't have to sit here and listen to the emotional baggage and value system that will help you grow in the way that you are meant to grow. Well, that was real B. Sure was. The problem with the Democrats is that they're too busy building houses instead of fixing families. You know what the problem with our government is? It lets in too much of the drugs that get too easily used, that are pervasive on the streets, that become a career option for a kid that couldn't figure out trigonometry because they didn't have somebody at home to show it to them. Is there value in having family and stability? Hell yeah. Is there value in loving parents? And what that looks like is your business. So we villainize solutions of a two-parent family, two women being married, two men being married, adopting a child. We villainize the shit out of that. That's one of the fucking solutions, guys. I hope this gets replayed at the White House, by the way. And by the way, nobody's perfect in the process. Nobody is. We are not unscathed. We made mistakes, but here's the difference. The grown-ups say, I screwed up there. I think I can do better. If I ever get the opportunity, I want to do it differently. Bill Belichick became one of the greatest coaches because he accidentally drafted an insanely talented quarterback in the 6th round by accident almost. Before that, he had 2 tours with 2 different teams, and he barely had a 380 winning percentage. He was not a successful coach before everything clicked. In that interview, do you think he said, well, this is what I've learned. I need better personnel. The guys on the bench need to be as good as the guys on the field. Right? Fair enough, Sabrina. I didn't know you had that. All right, calm down, Canada. No sense of invading now. We've already got our eye on you. If you invade us, you're going to leave your space open. You'll just become a state. Relax. Notice how I'm trying to get you down there. Yeah, Kay Urich, I want to point that out. Catholic Charities won't adopt out anymore because they don't believe in same-sex parents. Let me straighten that out. Let me put in what I know, and that is that it doesn't align with their belief system to work with same-sex parents. And they have that sovereign right, but I'm also going to say you shouldn't be in charge of adoptions anymore then. If you have that primary stream of influence, okay, don't, but also don't say that you need your heteronormative answers either. You know, when I went through the adoption process, we went to an agency, the Edmonton Eskimos Forever. And we went to an agency. I can't remember the name of it. It's probably for the better. And when we walked in, it was very Christian. It was also very white. And they spent an exorbitant amount of time about talking about the financing that would need to go on for us to procure. They literally use the words fucking procure a child. They're like, well, if you want a newborn, they're a little more expensive, but they're worth it if you ask me. I'm sorry, what? What? They were obsessed with 2 things. The heteronormative relationship that they saw in front of us, and I'm going to say the white Christian value of Catholic. Well, it's not perfect, but at least you're on our team. At least you shop at our stores. Ding. They didn't hide the fact that the only reason why we made it that far was money. And by the way, their price tag was stupid insane. People that are at a disadvantage they literally say things like, well, we work with birthright situations where if someone has chosen that's the expensive ones. That's traditionally what we work with, by the way. The high margin, I mean, the high probability of that. And what we've done is that we've shit-shamed, some teenage girl that is facing a choice into the boogeyman devil and otherwise eternal damnation for any decisions that she may or may not make right now, into procuring this child and covering their costs so it doesn't hurt their parents any more than her promiscuous ways have given. I threw up in the parking lot. They called me for about 4 months afterwards, and I said, you know, I really appreciate your designer children, and I really appreciate your you know, your ability to have purebreds produced and taken on. But I'm going to go down to the pound and get one there. Literally what I said to them, so they'd stop calling me. You're going to the pound? What does that mean? This isn't a puppy. Exactly, it's a person. They shouldn't be bought and sold in the fucking womb. And if you don't think that that's not what Project 2025 is about, gut check reality time. We're going to suppress you to a point where you can't afford this. We're going to suppress you to a point where you're going to think that your way of giving up a child for adoption is making sure that they have a better life. So they can have, hold on a second, wait for it, so they can have a better life in Christ. You know, I don't know much about your mama and dada because we've destroyed all the chain of custody. You'll never know your ancestry or anything else, but you know you're with Jesus. Since you come to live with us on the compound to learn the ways of the Lord, it's an important thing. You see, one thing that you can tell someone has led an angel existence isn't by their perfection, but how much they're able to tell you about the human condition and the spirit that they have before you, the experiences that they've had and the hell that they've seen. We have to be a catalyst of love. We have to be a catalyst of the change that we need to be. We need to recognize that there is a gray area. When there are pleas of compassion, his inauguration had a woman who has committed her life to the honest conveyance of what Jesus taught. And when she simply said, there are people that are suffering in fear, basically, Sunday night, at that inauguration, she was basically explaining Sunday night. And guess what? She talked about all of the tenets of Christianity. She wasn't talking about Donald Trump's a bad person. She basically just sat there as a reminder for a man who had so many favorite verses to the simple construct of, guess what? There are people that are suffering. You must keep this in mind, that they're living in fear because you are wielding the swords of fear. You are rattling the swords. And she said, please keep in mind that these are humans that are looking up to you, that are looking to this, that are conditioned to trust in the government, conditioned to look for a higher power in other people. And you and your vice president roll your fucking eyes. Game's up already, father. You're full of shit. You don't believe in the Bible you were selling, let alone the one that got you into the White House. She stood there in the pulpit and said, I see evil. I am calling it out. And all she did, she didn't say you're evil. She said, you must remember that we are taught to not act like this. And you're going to act like this. All she did was bring up the tenets of Christianity. That's it. What she did is exactly what she's done for every fucking Sunday of her preaching career. How about that for a well-placed F-bomb? And she was shit. She should be deported. What? That's your solution? How about you absorb what she said and find value? That someone that's committed to the cloth when you're not, just fucking respect it. Respect that she might have done some work here. Respect that maybe what she said actually had value. But instead, I want it to go away. Shit shame, shit shame. Well, we doxed her. We found out that she had a picture Gosh. Found out that she had a picture where she looked like this. Or we found a picture of Hillary going like this. How they frame it is what's wrong. How they frame it is the manipulation. Now, a lot of people have called her a hero. I'm going to say she had balls. Sorry, went there. And all she did was speak her truth. She spoke her truth. You're right. She doesn't. Inauguration. Have mercy. I'm going to read this. All she did was speak her truth. Reverend Budd. Marion Edgar Budd, an Episcopal bishop. She's not a fly-by-nighter. She's not a weekender, guys. To have mercy on the constituents, specifically naming LGBTQ people and immigrants. He had a front row seat, forced to it. And by the way, he didn't look comfortable at all, did he? When's this over? When's this over? They may not be citizens or have proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are a faithful member of our churches and mosques and synagogues. Deport her! Trump leaned over to say something to Vance, who shook his head in response. Later, as Trump was walking through the White House colonnade with Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, don't tell me that this is a DEI hire. Reporters asked him what he thought of the sermon. He asked the group, "Did you like it? Find it exciting?" He then added, "Didn't think it was a good service. No. He could do much better." It's because we weren't worshiping the same God he does. Because he's the only God in his world. She received over 1,000 death threats for speaking up in truth. Isn't that funny? The reason why we feel freaking freezing, the reason why we think that it's Sunday night all the time is because we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm going to give you a hint. Have the type of resolve and absolution that woman had in that pulpit that moment. The problem is, and I'm going to be blunt with you guys, I love you. You don't know where your truth is. You're so busy getting hammered by what everyone presents. Well, I have to consider this. I have to see that. I have to whatever. Oh, you're considering changing your plumbing from the indoor variety to the outdoor variety. Great. Let me know how it goes. In the meantime, I love you. Let me know if you need anything. We don't have to jump. We don't have to alter. We don't have to change. We just have to be like, oh, by the way, my primer is I'm going to treat you like a human. I don't give a shit about your plumbing. I don't want to see it. I don't want you to share. I need you to wash your hands and be done. That's it. Have a good day. My standard is I'm going to treat you with kindness no matter what horrific, debilitating thing it is that you're going to tell me. And by the way, that might make me a little wishy-washy. That might make me a little bit too much of a snowflake. By the way, if you want to see somebody pissed off as a 6-foot snowflake and you want to come at them, good luck with that, everybody. Good luck with that. Because the snowflake gets cold really fast. Wood soap. Thank you, Case. We have to be prepared what happens when we're challenged. That police officer that took the entrance exam and thought, I want to do something for the city. I want to work for the county. I want to be an officer. I want to keep the peace. I want to have an opportunity to de-escalate and be in a position. Yeah, it's kind of cool being the cop in charge and being looked up to, but I want that life. Shit's about to get real because that person might need to kick down the door here because I said something that somebody else didn't like. And they have to decide for themselves whether or not they have the authority or even the right-mindedness to think that I should be in trouble. Or insert anyone that is speaking up against it. By the way, there is the business of fear. There is the business of making sure that you get what you need out of things. If anybody ever needs anything, come here. I got space. We'll figure it out. If you make me break down my drum set so there's more room for you, then so be it. Leave me this camera and this way of life so then we can make sure it keeps going. After that, you can flood the zone here. Instead of being a sanctuary city, be a sanctuary soul. Give somebody a safe haven to connect. Give somebody a safe haven to be trusted and in honesty. Because I'm going to tell you, all those people that were flying Trump signs and talking about how they can't wait for this to happen, oh, go cry and all that other stuff, they're going to become his agents. They're the ones that are going to say, like, so-and-so said this and so-and-so did that. We're right up against the Red Scare again. And it's like, that person is going to be, you know what? That person has a backbone and a moral compass. Get him! Yes, I'd make room, Case. So I want to leave you on a high note. Sometimes you're brought into the world. You come with memes. I love it. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to say hi to everybody. I saw some other people pop in. Hey, Terry, how are you? Good to see you. Hope you stuck around. Magical Mermaid always. And thank you so much. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Freedom of speech means freedom to say whatever it is I want you to say. Stephanie, great to see you as always. Tiffany, glad you joined us. Janet, love you. See you tomorrow. No excuses, can't back out. Jim, great to see you. Colleen, Hattie, good to see you. Randall, all right, a little strong there. He wouldn't know Jesus if he slapped him in the face. We'd probably be a victim forever. Patty, yeah, he didn't touch that. Tiffany, good to see you. Muley, yeah, I'm rolling back here. Thank you, guys. Yeah, a few of those comments about, I mean, he didn't touch the Bible on purpose. Elaine, good to see you. We got more work this week. And it's Julie, good to see you. Just giving shout outs. Yellow the Truth Seeker, love that name for all those reasons. Maggie, good to see you. Yeah, don't get caught up on the egg prices, though. Ann B, hello, Ann B. I hope you're still watching. I remember you. Don't get caught up in the small stuff because they want you to be there. Rita, good to see you, love. Authentically misaligned. You know, I love that name. Love that name. KJ, yes, we'll catch you next time. Hope you caught the rest of it. Sandra, thank you. It's good to see you guys. So we really are kind of at that threshold. But I have a story to share with you that I think you'll kind of, I hope you kind of like it. So, oh my gosh, Monica, good to see you. So sometimes when you have this ability and you say, spirit guides go, here's a 99 ticket to Austin, you should go. Well, I know a lot of people down there now. So I'm like, Austin, I'm like, it's like right next to Houston. And then you're like almost 3 out, 2.5 out. Oh shit. Maybe it's not right next to it. And so sometimes you do these things, you don't always know why you're doing them. And sometimes things happen to you and it can be frustrating. There is like when you guys like send me messages and they're like, I don't really know what to do with this, or I can't find this or whatever. And I'm just going to say, it's the Tony turnaround moment. It's like St. Anthony. There's like a brokered thing between mediums and St. Anthony that St. Anthony is like, listen, I'm over here helping the masses. You should be over there helping masses. If you're calling me, you're taking away from resources, kind of professional courtesy, like find your own freaking keys, right? That's just a way. That's like the polite, St. Anthony connection is for mediums. And by the way, I go down for breakfast. Beautiful hotel, beautiful. Go down for breakfast and I'm wearing my ears, and I'm just in awe. I got food, I got fresh fruit, I got yogurts, I've got an omelet station. The omelet station was just invented. Those of you that know that joke, hysterical. And my coffee and my juice. I'm just like loving life, and I'm listening to this YouTuber, and I'm like, yeah, you go, brother, you're right, people are good. And I'm like into it, and I'm getting text messages, and I'm watching all of the lead up to the games and all this stuff, and I'm like all excited. And then as I'm starting having a couple of returning some phone calls, whatever, and then all of a sudden I'm starting to hear the earbuds go burr, 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 burr. Well, by now I got back up in the room. I'm like, oh shit, I must have left my earbuds on the table. So I finished getting ready and I go down there and I'm like, oh, it's not my person. It's not whatever. I just didn't bring it with me. Whatever. Must have left it down there. So I go down there and I looked and, casually looked on the counter where I would have left it, whatever. Go down there and I'm talking to the, one of the workers, and, there's a little bit of a language barrier. And by now there's 5 of them involved. We're able to string together what's going on. By the way, I'm not interested in teaching them my language. Am I interested in learning theirs? But in that moment, it was a beautiful thing, because the sign for I'm missing my earphones are, anyways, hysterical, because she goes, earbuds. And I went, holy, that was pretty good. So I was like, we're going to play charades. You're in. And we looked around the table and she goes, I looked in the lost and found nothing. I'm like, son of a gun. Obviously somebody must have taken them on me. So I go off on my way and I'm like, I can't not have earbuds. I'm going to be on a plane. I'm going to be whatever. I'm going to just go get another pair. So I end up going and getting another pair. And as I walk up, right, Q-tips, exactly. And I come up to this area, in the larger than life branded situation that's across the country, and the biggest employer and the most exploitive employer on the face of the planet, but whatever. I ask for, I go over and I'm like, oh, and then this woman comes up to me, beautiful woman. She had yellow hair, which I freaking loved. And she said, can I help you with something? I said, oh, I need earbuds. And, and she followed me over. She goes, which one do you need? You need this one right here. Okay, let me get you somebody. We'll get you squared away. And then she goes over. She goes, hey, Frank, when you get a chance, he's next. Can you come get the key and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And she goes, what kind of phone you got? And then I'm realizing she works for the phone company And I tell her, and she goes, oh, you must be up. Well, that's who I work for. And guess what? You must be ready for an upgrade. And I go, well, I got this one here. Oh, that was so last year. You need the new one. And I'm like, did you really go there? Right. And then I said, well, with all the kids I got to take care of, it's not really in the plan or the budget for me to upgrade right now. She goes, oh, you don't have to tell me. I got 6 almost overnight. And that was the magic of spirit. Because then I said, okay. So you're a foster parent? She said, well, I got my kids' sisters. And I said, well, what happened? She goes, well, they decided they didn't want to be moms no more. And they dropped them off for me. And then the kid comes over, gets the keys. And she goes, okay, looks like you're all set. She only half told me her story. I get my earbuds. Not exactly what I wanted, but whatever. We're on the road. We're in emergency overkill, right? We're in emergency mode. We're in whatever. We're in injury time. So I buy them. I'm like, okay, whatever. And as I'm walking out, I said, but if I did need an upgrade, I would want to come back and give you the business because I know you're helping out. And they said, who's the woman that always wears the yellow dress? And said, it's cheesecake time. She goes, oh my God, that's my mama. And I said, she's really proud that you would take those kids in because that's how I raised you. And I'm going to make sure you always get what you need. And I said, well, as an adoptive foster parent, I'm going to tell you to keep going. She goes, who in the hell are you? And I said, well, I have a show down at the other end of the strip here at a bookshop, Village Books. And she goes, I know that place. And she goes, I needed that today more than I needed the sale. You have to begin to recognize that money isn't the only thing that the world values. You have to recognize that there's a value system here that can't be bought or sold. You have to understand that there is the truism of helping people on their path has an economy that can never be taxed. It can never be villainized. And by the way, it gave the both of us the ability to speak our truth in the moment. That's my point. That's my truth. You can make me broke, but I'm richer than you ever guessed. You can make me poor. You can tell the world that I've done the most deliciously dastardly things. And guess what? Most of you are going to be like, that's so B. Of course he did. By the way, the motherfucker tried to take my spot. I'll cut that son of a bitch off. I'm working on it. But you begin to understand your truth and value when you know who the hell you are. And he's relying on you not knowing who you are. And having a very, and I do mean very unhealthy codependency with a savior that's never coming. The light is within you. You are the light. They tricked you all along and they lied to you along the way. Well played, Anne. Well played. So when I leave you tonight, I want you to know that these are things that you can become. Bless you guys for tuning in. Gives me a reason. Lets me have a little bit of a confessional, and also I hope it helps you along. Those of you that are in the class, roll up your sleeves and get ready. This is unlike anything that you've ever seen before. And your upgrade starts at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I'm going to give you guys the hard tap. Thank you guys so much for being part of my... Will you quit wearing eyelashes that come off? Oh my God, Tracy. Thanks, Deb. Thank you guys for coming along. Give you guys the hard taps. A reminder that we love and care for one another and just simply keep going. Going to see you guys soon. Take care. Yep.